In this video, we're going to explore why writers use complex sentences and how they can make your writing more effective. Complex sentences aren't just grammar rules. They're a tool for showing relationships between ideas, managing emphasis, and making your writing more cohesive and professional. By the end of this video, you'll be able to spot opportunities to add complex sentences, use them strategically, and see how they improve both clarity and style. Let's start with why complex sentences are so useful. They let you know how ideas relate to each other, instead of just stacking short, choppy sentences. For example, although the lecture was long, the students stayed focused because they were interested in the topic. Here we see two clear relationships. Contrast, although the lecture was long, and cause, because they were interested. Both relationships appear within one sentence, which makes your writing more cohesive and logical. When you write academically, relationships like cause, contrast, and condition matter because they help readers follow your reasoning. Instead of writing, the lecture was long, the students stayed focused, they were interested, complex sentences connect those ideas and make your argument sound smoother and more mature. Where you place a dependent clause changes what your reader focuses on. For example, because it was raining, we canceled the picnic. The emphasis here is on the reason first. However, we canceled the picnic because it was raining. Here we see the emphasis on the action first. This is a powerful tool in academic writing. You can decide what comes first, the context or the key point. Think of dependent clauses as a way to frame information. Placing them at the beginning often signals background or contrast. Putting them at the end puts the spotlight on your main point. Remember the three types of dependent clauses we studied earlier: relative clauses, complement clauses, and adverbial clauses. Knowing which type of dependent clause you're using isn't just about labeling, it shapes your meaning, tone, and flow. Relative clauses help you add precision and description. They're useful when you want to specify exactly who or what you're talking about. For example, the theory that explains this phenomenon is complex. This adds clarity. Complement clauses help you express thinking, knowledge, or argumentation. They're essential in academic writing for reporting information or viewpoints. For example, researchers believe that early exposure improves fluency. Here, the complement clause presents what researchers believe. Adverbial clauses help you connect ideas logically, showing cause and effect, contrast, or sequence. For example, since the results were inconclusive, the experiment was repeated. This shows a reason relationship, creating cohesion between ideas. So when you write, don't just ask, what kind of clause is this? Ask, what is the clause doing for my meaning? That's how you move from grammar knowledge to effective writing. Mixing sentence types makes your writing flow more naturally and keep it interesting. For example, a simple sentence, I studied for a test, or a compound sentence, I studied for the test and I reviewed my notes, or a complex sentence, I studied for the test because I wanted to get a good grade and I reviewed my notes thoroughly. Notice how the complex sentence adds nuance and rhythm without being confusing. When you revise your own writing, read it out loud. If every sentence sounds the same length or rhythm, it might feel flat. Adding complex sentences creates a more professional, natural rhythm that mirrors academic writing. Let's practice quickly. Here's a short paragraph. The article was difficult. I read it twice. I understood it better the second time. How could you combine these ideas into one or two complex sentences to improve flow and emphasis? Let's take a look. One possible rewrite is, because the article was difficult, I read it twice and understood it better the second time. Now look at your own writing and ask yourself, where could I show a relationship between ideas? Where could I emphasize key points by moving clauses around? And where can I combine simple sentences into smoother, complex ones? Complex sentences aren't just something you write, they appear constantly in academic texts. When you read journal articles, textbooks, or essays, notice what type of clauses are being used, where commas appear, how sentences are structured to emphasize certain ideas. Seeing how professional writers use complex sentences can help you read more critically and write more effectively. Let's look at how this works in real academic writing. Here's a sentence from a psychology article. Although emotional intelligence has been studied for decades, researchers continue to debate how it should be defined and measured. So let's break this down. This sentence is actually made up of multiple clauses. First, there's the dependent adverbial clause, although emotional intelligence has been studied for decades, and this is used to show contrast. Then there's the independent clause. Researchers continued to debate how it should be defined and measured. And this is the main idea, right? Finally, there's the embedded dependent complement clause, how it should be defined and measured, and this acts as the object of debate. There's also a comma after the introductory dependent clause, and this signals a pause before the main point. Starting with, although emotional intelligence has been studied for decades, builds contrast. It prepares the reader for something unexpected. If the sentence were reversed, researchers continue to debate how it should be defined and measured. Although emotional intelligence has been studied for decades, then the emphasis shifts to the debate rather than the contrast. That's the power of clause placement and punctuation. So let's review. Complex sentences help you show relationships between ideas. They let you control emphasis and background information, and mixing sentence types improves flow and sophistication in your writing. Punctuation and clause placement affect both meaning and tone. Keep an eye out for complex sentences when you read, and practice using them in your own writing. When you do, your sentences will be more clear, more engaging, and more professional.